us. There we go.
Now they can hear us.
Now they can hear us. So we're going to be hearing today from, like I said, some projects. So Shane McDonough is with us this morning. He's going to be talking about the project that he has at Green Bay East. Joanne is going to be sharing Project Search out of Green Bay. Megan Burrell is from Valley Packaging. And then we have DVR, both the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation and Tribal Vocational Rehabilitation, to talk about the services that they can provide as part of that work-based learning for our students with disabilities. So I'm going to move the Zoom meeting over here so that we can see Shane, because Shane is going to be our first speaker. And I'm going to go to, let's see, is it called, it's in the details. It is, because it's about detailing.
Hi, everyone. Hello, hello.
Good morning. Welcome.
Okay, wonderful. Can you guys all hear me clearly?
We can. So,
Okay.
Shane. And let me get, did I hit record already? I think I hit record.
I think it is recording. I got that
It
message
is
right.
recorded. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Wonderful.
All right. Great. Go for it.
Thank you all for allowing me to participate today. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. I really wanted to be, but I'm on job sites with students, and today is no different than any other. And we got off to a really good start this year at East High School here in Green Bay. And I just, I'm really wanting to be present for my students. We're still dealing with a lot of well, I shouldn't say post-pandemic. There's still a pandemic. We're with trying to get students reacclimated to being back out in the community. I have a number of students that are participating in their very first community-based work experiences ever. And, you know, they're 18, 19, sometimes some of them are 20 years old. So I really feel a duty and obligation to be present for my students now more so than ever. So that's why I am remote today and not in person. But anyway, I want to get right to it here. And, you know, my title is Work Experience Coordinator at Green Bay East High School. I'm one of 4 in the district. I'm a special education teacher. But I do believe that that title of work experience really doesn't do it justice. We are kind of the bridge for families and for our students, right, on transition and braiding services and collaborating with our community partners like DVR, like the ADRC, and getting the functional screen completed for our students that require that. And then, of course, working with our managed care partners to provide, you know, braided services and prepare our students and their families for what life is going to look like beyond their 21st year on this earth, right? So, okay, getting right to it. I was invited here today to talk about the auto detailing dealership. Sorry, if I can speak again, had too much coffee. The auto detailing partnership we have with a number of our local businesses here, local car dealerships here in Green Bay. So I guess if we go to the second slide there, looking at that quote, never say never. I know that right now this is, I don't know if we could just real quick, could I get, I saw the invite for today's meeting, but just a real quick identifier for who's in the room over there and what organization you're affiliated with. I know Project Search is there. I know DVR is there.
Yep. Unfortunately, we went around the room and did intros while we were muted, but we've got a number of school counselors and then also special education teachers. So that's
Wonderful.
our audience today.
Okay, great. Perfect audience. Great. Wonderful. So how it began, there's a brief video there. If we could just go to that slide, the next slide. And linked into that article, there's just a short video segment that you can click and press play on there.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Todd Weeds. My home selling
After Todd,
6 month
yeah.
flexible division, no upfront fees, the right to cash anytime. Plus, I guarantee to sell your home at your price, or I'll pay you the difference. Click on the screen to learn more.
Wonderful.
And a very proud day for 6 Green Bay special education students. They received certificates for successfully completing a 7-week work experience program.
And the first of its kind for the district, the students work with employees at doors for learning about auto detailing. And the 6-year agenda tells us how the program helped those students gain the skills to be successful employees.
In 7 weeks, students learned the ins and outs of auto detailing.
But what I've really enjoyed is how they've been teaching us how to detail cars, how to do it safely with chemicals, shamming, drying, acid washes.
The work experience program also allows these students to practice real-world employee skills, making it easier to secure a job after graduation.
The life skills and the soft skills that we're discussing, the communication skills, how to interact appropriately in a workplace, how to communicate their wants and needs, and how to best be a part of a team environment. That's really what we're teaching here. This is what it's all about.
Extraordinary. Absolutely, it's been a pleasure working with them. It's just been great, this whole program that they're trying to get going here.
And it wouldn't be called a job if you didn't get paid. And to celebrate their earnings, the students are cashing in on a Milwaukee Brewers game. They're paying for gas, snacks, and activities along the way, all on their own. Program coordinator Shane McDonough says having the students calculate game expenses gives them experience with responsible spending and budgeting.
This program is really, really great for you to try because it can prepare you for life. It can prepare you for all the tough stuff that you can handle and get thrown your way, especially in a real job.
In Green Bay, Sheriff Agenda Action 2 News.
Okay, so that's an overview of a snapshot of what the 7 weeks was like. And now I guess I'll share with you all the team that was formed to make it happen. So we had the local dealership, Pete Dorsch from Dorsch Ford. We have David Keene from Broadway Automotive. They're partners with us at East High School. We have the City Stadium Automotive Program. And this all began, I was sitting in IEP meetings and I had a number of students that were interested in pursuing careers in automotive and they were taking classes at East. So we have a full auto shop. We have a collaboration with NWTC, where students are can obtain their certification as an auto mechanic, the entry-level auto mechanic. They're 1 year away from that associate's degree when they graduate high school. Well, the big barrier for students that I was seeing with special needs is that most of them were failing a written brakes test. And it was just really frustrating for me to see my students not be able to continue in the program because they have this interest in automotive and the interest in cars. And, I couldn't get NWTC and Green Bay schools to necessarily, we just couldn't figure out how we could show or have the students demonstrate an alternative kind of understanding of brakes. So it was a non-negotiable. So I said, well, then if I can't get my students employed through a 2-year associate's degree, what other ways can they gain entry into the automotive field? And I met with Pete Dorsch and David Keene and my director of special education at the time, Claudia Henriksen, and we involved Lori Peacock with our school district, and we started asking the question. And one of the things that Pete Dorsch and David shared with us is that they are always looking for people in their auto body shop and their detailing departments. And that's a common entry-level position. So I said, aha, at this moment, I said, initially, why don't we just have the students, we'll train them up here. We'll start detailing cars at East High School. And, then real quick, Pete Dorsch came back and said, Shane, you're going to ruin the lifts that you have at East, these very expensive hydraulic lifts that we have in the garage. And then he said, well, we have space out at our dealership. And David said the same thing at Broadway, the Chevy dealership, and said, why don't you come on site and bring your students and we can teach them there and train them there. I said, great, wonderful. Then the next question, I guess, as we continue to have some meetings, we developed this plan. So really, at the end of the day, if you guys have an industry in your area, it doesn't have to be auto detailing. It can be really anything, right? If you find a community partner that's willing to engage with you and willing to collaborate with you and with some other players like DVR specifically, you can make some really cool things happen. So to the next slide, I guess. So the idea was to provide this work-based learning opportunities for students with special needs, to teach them the skills that were transferable into the local workforce and to partner with these local employers to provide entry level into the current and future labor markets. The idea also was to create them with an employer recognized certificate, something tangible that it said if they can meet these benchmarks and do these tasks associated with auto detailing, that they could become in essence certified in auto detailing. And this is something that the students could take with them and bring with them to future interviews. And it's something that they could be proud of, right? Something tangible that they can put on and display at home I think it's really important for us to celebrate, the successes of our students, because so often, we're out in the community working on these job skills and community readiness skills, but I think it's also important to have some fun. And, to create a certification and to celebrate that, I think is an important step of building the excitement and the buy-in for this program. And then lastly, I guess working with DVR. This is I can't stress this enough. Having a solid relationship with your local DVR rep is so important. And to creating an opening doors that otherwise would not be open for our students, to have the access to the services of DVR and the supports is really key. Next slide, please. So there it is. Yeah, I guess I'm really plugging it here. DVR, yay, DVR. Next slide. So one of our missions is ensuring that all students are career and community ready, and that all means all. And really, as a district, really embracing that. And I think that, it's one thing for us to be able to put phrases like this up on a PowerPoint, right? But really, it's where I always say, if you want to see what an organization values, see what they fund, right? What are they going to provide opportunities for? Like the district, we invested quite a bit of resource into developing this program. And, I do give credit to my administrators and the administrative team by taking a risk and taking a chance on this and working with our community partners. I guess next slide, because I'll get into the nuts and bolts of what that means specifically. We created a proposal with the auto dealerships, the local industry here, and with DVR at the table. So there were the three key components of this. The stakeholders were the school district, DVR, and the industry. And again, like I said, you can replicate this across any industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be automotive. But under my instruction, there would be 6 students. This is the initial group that went through. 6 students that would participate, and we started in the summer in an extended school year opportunity to help them learn the skills of auto detailing. And this ran from June to August for approximately 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. Now, the training site was on site with the local industry partner with Dorsch Ford. Recognizing them with that certificate and providing a training by the employer, I shouldn't say that, let me backtrack. We were the employer, and I'll get into that on the next slide. But having that industry provide training, I learned how to detail cars. I went out to Dorsch Ford for a few days, for a few hours, and I was trained by Marv, the manager of that department, on how to detail a car from start to finish. And I took copious amount of notes. Sorry about the beeping there, the calendar reminders for me. Took a lot of notes, took a lot of photos, took some video, and built up systematic instruction, right? That's really the way I put it together. So actually it was a 4-hour shift, 3.5 to 4 hours. And we thought it was really important to include in that a break time and have lunch with the other employees of the location so that they could gain some of that community and some of those soft skills of how to communicate, right? In those unstructured moments, like a lunch break. Next slide. So, those big questions we ask, how can we get students involved out in the community? Because we know there's all kinds of data that demonstrates that if students with disabilities, if they have 2 work experiences while still in high school, they have a 5-fold increase of being employed post-graduation, which is really why we do what we do. Next slide, please. So the big question is, how can you maintain safety, right? And liability concerns, make sure those are covered. One way that we did it was created a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, as they say in legal speak, between the district, DVR, and the business partner. And this requires us to think outside the box. Next slide, and I'll get into that. So thinking outside the box. We had this idea, and I proposed this to my administration first, and then I involved DVR in the conversation before we went back to Dorsch Ford and to Broadway Automotive. And the biggest barrier to opening these doors and these opportunities for students is, not only liability, who's going to be responsible for the students, who's going to supervise the students, but then also who's going to pay them, right? Because at the end of the day, we want the students to earn money. A lot of the students that I serve at East High School, those families, they're socioeconomically disadvantaged. Every dollar that can come into the home is necessary. And if the student is capable of working, bringing income in is key to keeping lights on and keeping people and families fed. So I had this idea, you know, traditionally when we look at temporary work experiences, when I came in 8 years ago, a student could sign up for services with DVR. They could choose an agency to work with to help develop a job site and then provide coaching and complete a temporary work experience. And there are costs involved, right? You've got cost. DVR has to pay a fee to the agency to find that temporary work experience site. So they're paid a fee for that. And then there are monies paid to that agency to provide systematic instruction and supervision while a student is on the job. I had the idea, what if we as a school district could be the employer? What if we employ the students? I'm already providing coaching. I'm already developing the job sites. So I thought there was some duplication of services going on there potentially. But if we could save some of that resource, money, funds, we might be able to also engage more students. And I thought it would be a win-win for the state of Wisconsin. It could potentially reduce some of those costs. And we also have a shortage of agencies and job coaches in Northeast Wisconsin. And I'm sure without having a lay of the land, and if I did an impromptu poll right there in your meeting space, that you probably have the same, right? Could I get a thumbs up if there's a shortage of available agencies and coaches to provide services? Right. So one creative way is if your district can employ the students, right? Right. So begins with small steps. Next slide, please. How we made it work. First of all, the students referred to DVR. We referred the students to DVR and then they were hired by the district. They would go through the same hiring process as any employee. So we got HR involved, we got admin involved to create buy-in. So the students that were eventually working and completed that work experience, that temporary work experience, they were drug tested, they were background checked. They went through the same hiring processes as any employee of the district. And sadly, some students were not allowed to continue on in the hiring process because of challenges related to the hiring process, right? You know, and the last step was a DVR would then reimburse wages and fringe benefits. And it was a win-win for all. Next slide, please. So then we talked about who's supporting the students. Like I talked about, I went out on the job site. I took videos, photos. We created task analyses for the students to support. And we were doing a lot of the gradual release of responsibility, right? Where I would show Marv, who's the manager at the location, would show them how to do these tasks. And we were also pairing them up with employees of that department. So they weren't siloed, they weren't separate, right? It's not like I brought out my students 3 or 4 at a time. We did 2 shifts, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And I didn't have them separate doing the tasks away from the other detailing department employees. It's really important that they are treated just like anyone else that's there, learning the same way anyone else would learn. And then of course, you know, we were adjusting those level of support as needed. There were some modifications made to ensure their safety. Like we made sure that they weren't handling the hydraulic equipment or the high powered hoses, etc. The power washers. They weren't driving the vehicles into the detailing bay to be detailed. There were some steps we took to limit potential liability. And I thought, you know, the biggest thing was just being able to communicate effectively with our partners at Dorsch and to adjust as necessary. Next slide, please. So this is just an example. In real time, we developed some processes for doing step-by-step instruction, but while we were just literally learning this on the fly and adjusting on the fly, I found it beneficial for me as the job coach to be documenting on just a big giant post-it board for my students to see as well. And over time, they were able to learn the step-by-step of what do we do first? What do we do second? And something that ended up happening was that as I was going through determining how many minutes, how are we tracking progress? You know, how are we creating this certification? What are the prerequisites, right? In creating SMART goals as well, something measurable. And one thing that we did was we created these goals. Okay, 45 minutes. We want to detail a full-size truck in 45 minutes. Why? Because that's the expectation for someone who's trained in that department. One of the things that we found out, and this is a benefit to the employers, is that we were able to then start tracking, well, wait a minute, if this is working not only for the students from Green Bay or Public School District, and we're seeing improvement and efficiency measures, why don't we start doing this with all our employees? And they ended up adjusting their entire assessment protocols for their own staff based upon some of the measures that we implemented. So they created a whole new benefits promotional bonus system for their hourly paid employees that said, listen, if you're demonstrating that you can complete these tasks in X amount of minutes, we'll pay you more hourly. And it ended up making the whole system a little more efficient and run a little more smoothly. So that's another benefit you can pitch to your local industries, is that you can help improve efficiency measures. I just wanted to show some of these images here, you know, the students eating with the staff. Now, the Dorsch family, they're very kind, family-owned employer here locally in Green Bay. And twice a year, they do a big event. This one was a barbecue cookout right around the 4th of July. And our students were invited to participate. They cooked T-bone steaks for everybody. And our students were able to get down in their first week or second week of employment and have the fabulous steak lunch. And I thought it was just really nice of the employer. Now, I'm not saying that all employers have to feed their student workers steaks. Okay, that's not what I'm getting at. But what I'm saying is trying to find ways to build community with the industry partners. I think it's really important. Okay, sorry. Next slide. So, and then lastly, you know, make it festive. You know, we made a big shindig out of this. You know, I like to have parties. That's just part of my nature. Part of being a special education teacher, I worked in hospitality, you know, for Starwood Resorts. And I wanted to celebrate my students. I wanted to celebrate this partnership. And what we ended up doing was created an opportunity for the families of our students to come. And I wanted to create opportunities for my students to get up and speak in front of a crowd and you know, in front of their families and the community. We invited the local media, and as you saw, local media attended. And we had our, you know, a public relations division that helped me to get out a presser on that. But hey, and then we ended up having, you know, soda punch and cake. Why not? You know, make it a party. That's what I don't know. I like to celebrate. So that's why I included that last slide in there. Second to last slide. So again, these are just images of the students getting up and speaking. The students shaking the hands of the superintendent of schools, a special education director, having, you know, school board members, having Jennifer from DVR, and I'm sorry, her married name is not Michalowski anymore, and it's escaping me. I'm sorry, Jennifer, if you're out there in the cyber world watching this video someday. But you know, having DVR, having the district, and having the community partner all present to celebrate those kids and their success is huge. It's a central part of this whole network and this whole tree we built out here. And then lastly, that certificate of achievement. You know, and saying that they've demonstrated the skills necessary to be employable. It goes a long way. It goes a long way for their morale and for their can-do attitude, but it goes a long way when they go in an interview. I have a number of students that completed this program now, and I'll get into that in the last slide here, but something that they can keep in their portfolios, really important. And then family engagement. I can't stress this enough. Having the families involved in the process, the hiring process and the orientation that we held, and being in communication with your families, and then involving them in the successes and even those trials and tribulations and problem solving. Lean on your families and involve them. That's the best I can say about that. And next slide. Yay, we got a shout out in the Smart Brief. Woohoo! Yeah, it got out. I got some calls from California, Oregon, there's some other states interested. Obviously, the pandemic really put a monkey wrench in some of those discussions and those plans, but we're getting back to it now, right? So I hope you guys in North Central Wisconsin can be inspired. And I really, want to put this out there that I'm available, but hold on, that's 2 slides down the road. I can't get ahead of myself. Next slide, please. What's followed up? Okay, so we've expanded the partnership. Associated Bank saw that morning spot we did and saw the celebration, and I got a call from them and they said, Shane, we want to do what Broadway. So we started a partnership with Associated Bank and we expanded. Sadly, the first student that was working the commercial loans division in their Ashwaubenon corporate branch, they started the week before everything shut down. Literally, the world stopped, as we all know, and as did that opportunity. The good news is there's, Associated went remote, and a lot of their employees that worked in the commercial loans division are still working remotely today, and they found that to work for them and for their staff. But we are in the process of getting started again with them, and I'm really excited to get my students who are interested in pursuing finance and computers and analytics back there, because I think there's tremendous potential with Associated Bank. And their starting wage is $24 an hour, and the students, when they complete this internship, they're highly employable, and I have the utmost confidence that we're going to start feeding students into their commercial loans division. We've had 17 students complete the auto detailing work experience, and we've also started a partnership with Lodge Kohler here in Green Bay for hospitality. And I'm really excited about what 2022-23 is going to bring. And I see tremendous potential for this model to be expanded not only in the Green Bay area, but beyond. And I guess we can just go to the next slide. Next steps, I think, looking at what's possible, right? If we increase the number of students participating and ensure that all of them have opportunities to gain entry into the workforce. And we're not talking about, there's nothing wrong with temporary work experiences that are partnerships with Goodwill or with Culver's, or, the filing food and well, the word filth is a misnomer. I don't like using that word, the 3 F's though, right? What we're trying to do with this is to create entryway into and open doors that traditionally have not been open to our students. And then, I think the big thing is to leverage existing partnerships that you have in your districts, in your areas, and to sit down and start kicking the can on what could be. For me, I would love to add manufacturing. That's next up for me. I think, Green Bay is a paper producing capital in the world. I didn't realize this Puffs tissue that we all know and love, Puffs, Plus, is made only in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that until this week. Yeah, but I'd love to get my kids going in the paper industry or manufacturing. I think that's the next, the next hurdle for us. Something else I got to mention, as a result of some of this work, the Herb Pohl Foundation recognized, and I was awarded, the Green Bay East High School was awarded a grant through the Pohl Foundation for this work we did. And I estimated a cost savings for each of the 17 participants to the state of Wisconsin. Now, I got to be careful on how I state this. When you look at DVR and their involvement, I mentioned earlier about job agencies and coaches and the costs associated. If you calculate a placement fee of $750 to $850, I'm not sure what the exact number is now. I think it's gone up. Plus the cost for systematic instruction, the hourly rate that's paid to an agency to provide coaching. We were looking at a savings anywhere, depending on the level of need of a student, of course, anywhere from $2,100 per student upwards of up to $48,000 or $5,000 per student, depending on their level of need. But if you start extrapolating that out and doing the math on that, 17 students at, say, even the lowball number of $2,000 per student, potentially the state of Wisconsin there was a $34,000 potential savings there. And think if we can expand this to more high schools across our state, how many more students could be impacted? How many more dollars could be saved to provide additional services elsewhere? I have to be very careful politically how I state that, but anyway, I think it's a model that can be replicated, and I hope that you guys in the room over there can sit through this and say, wow, this guy talks a lot, but maybe you're inspired to say, why couldn't we do it here? And what would it take to do here? And how could it look here? I'm excited for all of you and the work you're doing. I say, get at it. And if you guys can make this happen elsewhere, I'm happy to, help out any way I can. I'll provide my contact information. Please call me, email me if I can be of any assistance in connecting with your community partners. I'd be more than happy to do that. And I think that's the end of my presentation. I don't know, is there one last slide?
I'm going to open it up to questions. So and you just say them from where you are because we've got speakers or mics hanging everywhere. So does anybody have any questions for Shane on the programs? I'm excited that you're looking at manufacturing, and I was going to say you should connect with Rachel Brady from Unlimited Services up in Oconto.
Okay.
They came up with the same kind of idea there for high school students that wanted to work at Unlimited Services, but they had a very traditional shift, an 8 to 4 shift and or whatever the shifts were there that didn't work well with high school students. So they created a halftime shift just for high school students, and they have a line that is just high school students that even manage that line. So they did something very similar to what you did with the detailing. They came up with what are the processes that high school students could do within 4 hours instead of an 8-hour shift, and they created a line just for that. So I think that'd be a great connection for you, Shane, to think about your next steps for manufacturing.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I'm not familiar with that wonderful set. That sounds brilliant, number one, because, again, I look back at what works for our students with special needs can work for all, right? These accommodations and supports that we implement. I mean, how many employers right now are begging for workers? And, we need to turn this 8 or 12-hour shift idea on its head. And I've spoken to manufacturing managers and owners, and we have to change the way that we operate, right? That includes even our community partners. So if a 4-hour shift works for people better, and we can get as much productivity or more out of it, then maybe we need to shift that way. And I think that sounds like an employer who's flexible, and it sounds like a district and some individuals who are really forward thinking. That's wonderful. I would love to get connected with them. If you could possibly send me their contact information, I would love that.
Absolutely. I will absolutely do that.
Wonderful.
Okay. Oh, do we have a question, Bev?
Have you, because you said it's 16 to 21, have you thought of the idea that when they age out of high school, transitioning do they get the job then? And then are you working with places like a Spiro so that they can have a job coach or support employment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, there's two things. You bring up a great point. I can share that. Okay, so of that first 6 that you saw on camera getting certificates, one of the gentlemen in that WBAY snippet, he was part of the first cohort. He's now the assistant manager at Dorsch Ford of that department. So he stayed on. He's a 40-hour paid employee. He's got benefits with them. He's doing really well. I have another student that works in did work in the parts department there, was hired full-time. He ended up leaving Dorsch Ford. It was a mutual thing, but he got another opportunity in the community for more pay, more hours. So he took it. So I do leave the opportunity open for students to be hired on. This is a temporary work experience. So it's through DVR and the school district. So if the employer likes them and they like the job, by all means, I always say yes. Go back and of course. That's what we're about. For those students that are transitioning out, I like to think of it as, I'm a big visual guy, so I say cross the bridge together, bridge that, from school-based support to community-based agency support, or, the big buzzwords we're using now, braiding of services. I think if we braid services, if we as a school district are doing what is best practice, we're crossing the bridge with those families. prior to them exiting our district. So I look for students in their final year, and I work with our MCOs, our managed care organizations, to start transitioning students to an Aspiro or to Curative, so that they're doing pre-voc services or day services with those community agency providers their last year of school with us, so that it's a seamless transition. And yes, so the answer is yes. I collaborate with job coach agencies to find placements for my students, specifically targeting those final 18 months when they're in my program.
Any other questions? All right, well, I know you need to get back to your kids, Shane, so thank you so much for sharing information on this awesome program.
Well, thanks for inviting me. And then, you know, listen, please reach out, anyone with any questions, if you leave this morning's meeting and something comes to you as you're driving back to your school or home, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to be a resource and be a sounding board for you, and kick the tires on some ideas. So thank you all for allowing me to present today.
Thanks a lot, Shane. Have a great day.
Likewise, bye-bye.
Right, and I know I saw some pictures of everything that we are sharing today, all of the slide decks, any of the resources, all of that is going to be in a shared folder that you will get access to at the end of the day. All right, so next we have Joanne Lawrence, and we find, there we go. Project Search, we have a little technical glitch.
I just found it on my phone.
You just found it on your phone. And you.
I think it matters since this is very close.
Okay. All right. Then we'll just.
Can I just, although I guess they can't see me like that.
What? Yeah, I have a little issue with that.
I guess I'll just reach over. Yeah, I'll let you get in comments. Okay, well, yeah, this is new for me. I had to recreate my presentation over again because it didn't get to Lynn. So yes, technical difficulties. But luckily she had one from another project search site that I just quickly adapted to our program. So if we see any wrong names on here, that I'll try to correct that. So I'm Joanne Lawrence. I'm the instructor at Project Search for Bellin and St. Vincent Hospitals in Green Bay. You can go on to the next slide. So Project Search, I guess I have to see my slides to see what's on them. Project Search originated at Cincinnati Hospital. It was created by Aaron Ryle and Susie Rutowski, a special ed director and a nurse, who saw an opening for young adults to do jobs in hospitals that other people couldn't do, or that were not being filled, such as sanitizing surfaces and stocking supplies and things like that. They realized that we had an untapped market in people with disabilities. So they started this program several years ago. It has expanded to, we are now at 600 programs across 45 states and in 9 countries. And Wisconsin, I believe, still has the most Project Search sites of most of the states. We've got 30 sites in Project Search. I mean, in Wisconsin. This is not a picture of anything that I am familiar with. I just didn't delete it because it's nice. It's a hospital. You can picture, yes, Bellin St. Vincent Hospital here instead. So when interns start our program, they go through 3 weeks. They go through 3 weeks. We go through 2 weeks of orientation in the hospital. They participate in 3 10-week internships throughout their year at Project Search. They have, I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself by getting into that, but the typical days 8 o'clock to 2:30. And transportation is not something that Project Search handles. So that's figured out between the student and the school district or whoever else they work with. In our particular program, we take students who are in their last year of high school. If there's room in the program, we will also take young adults. So we have, in fact, at this time, we have six people from school districts and 2 are from our adults that have already graduated. That's their mission, but it's a nice mission. It would work for us too. Providing valuable employment and life skills for young adults with disabilities and a compassionate healthcare environment to benefit our community tomorrow. Beautiful. That would be that's really nice. The goal is for 100% employment. So once the individuals complete our program, they then go on to apply for jobs, interview for jobs, and become employed. And then our skills trainers follow them on the jobs as well. They have to work at least a minimum of 16 hours per week. And we expect them to be paid above state minimum wage in an inclusive environment and within their interests and abilities. So we work through that throughout the whole year to help them kind of fine tune what they want as they're going through their departments. Sometimes interns will end up in a department that they don't love, which we consider to be a good learning experience as well, because we all have to learn how to do parts of our jobs that we don't love doing. And it's a real skill to be able to give your best to something that you're not particularly interested in. But throughout all of this, they start learning what they are interested in and what they're not interested in, which is a valuable thing to know too. Several partners come together to put on Project Search. I feel like I left off CESA 8. Okay, we've got it's for CESA 7 and 8 school districts, but CESA obviously sponsored Project Search as well as Aspiro. We work in the 2 hospitals, Bellin and St. Vincent hospitals, and we work along with DVR and the long-term care partners and family. So at a glance, we start in September. After a couple of weeks, they start their first internship that lasts about 10 weeks or lasts 10 weeks. Throughout the internships, they have a 5-week employment meeting with all their team members, including their school district parents, hospital supervisor, and Project Search staff, DVR, and their long-term care partners. We have a 5-week meeting and a 10-week meeting. So we kind of review after 5 weeks, how are they doing, what's going on? And then we have a 10-week meeting as well. And in somewhere around beginning of December, they start their second internship. That lasts another 10 weeks. That ends for the end of February, and they start their next internship at the beginning of March. And it's really fun to see them between the second and third internships. It's like they just suddenly become adults in that span of time. In that last internship, they really gain a lot of confidence. And we're in the beginning, we're going out with them, and our skills trainer takes them to the job and works with them one-on-one until they're ready for her to leave. She steps away and she goes back and gets another intern and brings them to their department and stays with them until they're ready for her to step away. It can take a couple weeks to get them all in a department. But that last internship, they're pretty much saying, you can go, I got this, I can handle it. And they're pushing us away. So it's really fun to see that. We have a completion ceremony at the end of May. And the last couple of years, it's been virtual. This last year, we were finally able to have it somewhat in person, but hopefully we'll have a full in-person ceremony this time. So curriculum. So when interns start, they have, we do an hour class in the morning, so between 8 to 9, which my colleague has hopefully taken care of for me today. Between 8 to 9, we teach a class, then they go out to their internships, and then they come back at the end of the day where we kind of debrief. So some of the curriculum that we go through, a lot on team building, getting around the workplace safety, technology, which I was surprised to find that, well, I think it's still true that a lot of schools are using Google mostly, but businesses are using mostly Microsoft. So I really liked to teach them both. You know, we work with both and hopefully they can go out knowing both until Microsoft went to 365 and now we can't get into it. We can't do it, so we're doing all Google for the time being. Let's see, do a lot of interviewing skills. Our interns we go through mock interviews in usually around the end of February, where they go to a Spiro and go through actual interviews with partners from the business communities. Come in, they volunteer to come in and do some mock interviews. And it's really a great experience for them. We do some money management, health and wellness, and they develop their resume and all job search skills, and then how to keep your job, which is really a wonderful thing to go through. We've also added some relationship lessons as well, which have been really beneficial to help interns understand that the ins and outs of relationships, and especially as it relates to the workplace. We've had interns who want to ask other people that they work with in their department out on dates. You're an intern and probably not a good idea in the workplace, but you know, if you're going to have a relationship in the workplace, here's the best way to do that. So we do delve into quite a lot of issues. Pretty much gone through this. The interns do work 4 hours a day. They each go to their own departments. I wish I had my own slides at this point. Better one for this one. When they go into departments, they go into their own departments. So interns don't go as a group. They're going and slide that has the interns. Okay, so these are just a few. In the hospital, the reason this program takes place in a hospital, at least often takes place in hospitals, is because there's so many different types of jobs you could get in a hospital. So our interns work in environmental services. They might do some cleaning, or they work in garbage and recycling. We also have one possible floor tech where they clean the floors of the hospital. You'd be surprised at how dirty they get just overnight. They mop the floors, but then they learn how to use floor machines. So they get some experience in driving machines that clean floors and other types of things. Our garbage and recycling interns they get certified in driving a tugger so that they can tug bins down to the loading dock. We have interns who work in pharmacy. And in my brief experience with Project Search, this is my 4th year. We've had 2 interns who got hired as pharmacy techs after working in getting experience in the pharmacy. Central processing, which I never knew before, is where they sterilize and clean all of the surgical instruments used in surgeries. We have an intern there now who's just doing amazing work. They'd like to keep her forever. We just started registration. It's a department we've never had before. For the first time, we've had an intern who is in a wheelchair, and it made us really review our departments and the jobs that interns have, and we realized that so many of them are very physical jobs, and we needed to have some jobs that students could do that were not so physical. So registration stepped up. They said we'd love to have an intern, and our young woman is working there now, and she's escorting people to their to where they're going to have tests, or to if they're staying in the hospital. She'll bring them to their rooms. And it's turning out very well. They told us that they would love to have more interns in the future because it's going so well. They've worked in imaging and shipping and receiving, orthopedics, food and nutrition, the NICU, the ICU, pediatrics, and so much more. Now, the departments that we have available to us really depend upon the year and whether or not the department is interested in having an intern. We were hard hit in 2020, when we, in March of 2020, had to leave and our interns had to go home, and they missed their last rotation, and we just met virtually for the rest of that year. The following year, the hospitals did invite us to come back. Many project search programs didn't open up that first year after COVID started. But our hospitals decided that they really did need our interns to come back. And the first rotation that we came back in the fall of 2020, all of our interns worked in environmental services, and they did some extra work cleaning and sanitizing the hospitals because that was so needed at that time. So since that time, environmental services has been a big part of our program. I think that the hospital, it was really beneficial for the hospitals to see people out sanitizing, and it got our program a little bit more recognized as well. So slowly, since that time, we've been building our departments back up. Some departments have been, they sort of pulled out that year of COVID, and we had to take some time getting them to come back. A lot of the hospitals lost funding, they lost people, they're overworked. Everybody's overworked in the hospital right now. And it's sometimes a little hard to convince them that with a little training, you'll have our intern to work in your department for free for you for 10 weeks. And, I think it scares them a little bit to think that, oh, we're gonna have to train them and we don't have people to do that. And it doesn't take much training for our interns to get out there and do their jobs. So it has been very, very valuable for the hospital. And those that realize that come back year after year and they say, we'll take 3 interns a year, we'll take as much as you can give us. In August, when I start going back into the hospital, they're seeking me out going, when are the new interns starting? Are they starting soon? So they really do rely on us. Our daily schedule is we have a classroom time from 8 to 9 in the morning. Then interns go to their departments. We encourage them to take their lunch with them so that they eat in their department with their department colleagues, if possible. Many departments have break rooms, and we like to get the interns into the break rooms so that they can start learning some social communication skills and how do you communicate with your colleagues. And then after lunch, they work in their departments again. It says on here that lunch is 11 to 11:30. Lunch is really whenever the department wants the intern to take lunch. So it's not that set a schedule. And then they come back at the end of the day from 2 to 2:30, where we have a little bit of a reflection about what happened during the day. Did you have any problems? We can kind of work through those together with all of the interns. So that they understand how to get through that particular problem again.
So is the classroom portion and the reflection, I assume you have a space at the hospital?
We do, we have a classroom, we call it a training room, and we call the interns, we don't call them students, because we're trying to move away from that school atmosphere. We have a training room in the basement of St. Vincent Hospital. And that's where we do all of our initial orientation and then training throughout the year. Okay, this project searches timeline isn't quite the same as ours. I don't know when our applications are going to be due yet, but they're sometimes around February. An assessment date, ignore that date, that hasn't been set yet. So if interns are interested in the project search program, they apply. There's an application on the Aspiro website. They apply. All applications have to be in by, it's usually something like the second week in February. And then whoever does apply is invited to come to a skill assessment day. And that's usually the first week in March. Interns will go through different assessments throughout that day. And the reason I sound so confused about that is because I'm never invited to that. I'm back teaching the current interns. The new interns that are coming into the program are, they go through a skill assessment with my colleague, who is a skills trainer, and then several people at Aspiro. And I kind of like that I'm not involved in that process, because then I don't get to choose who my interns are going to be. They come to me, and the people who do that assessment do very well, because they send me people that are ready for the program. They go through that skills training, and then from that, it's determined whether or not they'll be invited to attend Project Search. So usually by the end of March, an acceptance letter goes out saying, congratulations, you're a Project Search intern. We do have an open house that takes place in the fall of the year. And this year, this is actually the first year we've been able to do an in-person open house since COVID. It is going to be on November 10th. I'd be a lot better at this if I was looking at my own slides. November 10th from 3 to 5 at the hospital. And more information will be coming out about that soon.
And you can definitely send your actual slide deck, and we'll put it in the folder.
Let's
So everybody
do
will
it.
still have access
Yes,
to
let's do that. Okay, good. So open house is just our interns stay later that day, and then people come in and interns show them, they have a slide presentation that they'll show, and everybody can walk around and see what the interns are currently doing. And it gives a little bit of an insight into what's going on, or what Project Search is all about. That is, November 10th from 3 to 5. And it's just, come in at whatever time you want and program. There are also, I am now able to offer this again. I can do hospital tours as well. If you contact me directly, I can meet with whoever's interested and do a hospital tour. We just ask for not to have large groups, because we can't bring large groups to the hospital yet. But often it's often a teacher and maybe parents and a potential intern. And we go through 2 different hospital areas. I'm a little bit restricted on what I can show people at this point. I don't believe they'll let me take anybody to patient floors, but we can get off the elevator and peek down the patient floor a little bit. So I can show around and give people an idea of what the program's about. And okay, so the guidelines. 18 plus years old. We like to take interns who are in their last year of high school, because the outcome of Project Search is that they're going to get a job. So Project Search doesn't really end at the end of the year. They stay with us and they continue to search for work. And we're not done until they are placed in a job, and they're appropriately placed in a job. So they do have to be at least 18 years old. For this program, I really have found that our interns are mostly around 20, 21, sometimes 22 years old. And that seems to be the best maturity level. I've only had one other intern who was 18, and I could see the difference between the 18-year-old and the 20-something-year-olds. They do have to have appropriate hygiene and social and communication skills. Although I've had interns who are not great communicators, who still are great workers. So they don't have to, I see a nod over there. They don't have to be completely verbal, but they have to have some means of at least giving a yes or a no and they have to be able to follow directions. They have to have the ability to take direction and change behavior. So we've had interns with behavior issues, but they have to be willing to change that behavior in order to become a good worker. They need access to transportation. They have to pass a background check and have health requirements. And the biggest thing, the absolute biggest thing is they have to have a desire to work. It's very difficult when I have interns who come in and they don't know why they're in the program. They're in the program because their parents wanted them to be in a program. Their teachers thought that they'd be good for the program, but they don't know what it is or why they're there. And that's tough. It's really hard to make somebody want to work if they don't have a desire to work. So the best project search interns are the ones that really want jobs. They want to be out there. They want to get in there and learn as much as they can about a job that they could have forever. So contact information, you can contact me or you can contact our program manager, Jessica Clemens. Jessica probably will get back to you faster than I will sometimes because I'm busy all day. But I will get back to you, and I do ask that you contact me directly if you're looking for a tour. So again, this program is open to CESA 8 students. We've had only a few in the past. I think because of the distance, transportation would have to be arranged, and that can be difficult, but it is absolutely worthwhile. I started the program 4 years ago. Well, this is my 4th year, and the interns from my first year, the COVID year, almost like 90% of them became employed and still have those same jobs today. So, and that looking back on previous project search years, that seems to still also be true. The interns that were hired 5, 6, 7 years ago, for the most part, still have the jobs that they got when they started the program. So it is worthwhile, and we really want to spread this into CESA 8 and get more interns from this area. Get through that everlasting transportation question. That is a difficult thing for everybody. Especially up here.
With that being said, is there any thought of spreading over to Theta Care in Shawano or any other hospital?
Not at this point. There is, they did just start another project search site in Green Bay through Aurora, and that is for older adults with disabilities. So as far as schools, you know, we tried a few years ago to get one in this area for CESA 8, and project search itself wasn't open to that. I don't know. I guess there's always hope for the future, but at this point, no.
Other questions on this?
I think so. I'm just trying to figure out how to ask. So they're adults. Do they attend this bureau during the day to make money? Because you said these are all unpaid.
These are unpaid internships. What they get is they get their high school diploma. So they've deferred graduation until after project search.
So they're still technically a student at the high school.
They're technically high school students. Those that come back after graduation get college credit through Whitewater for attending the program, because they do need to get something for attending.
What type of jobs are those that completed your internships? What type of jobs did they get?
Somebody was going to ask that. My skills trainer is so much better at this than I am. Because once they graduate, I don't have contact with them much anymore. They work with my colleague, our career specialist, and she helps them become employed and gets them out into the community.
Is that through its bureau?
Yes, she's hired through Spiro, yes. What jobs? Okay, so we have a couple who have worked in hospitals and pharmacies.
Food service.
We have food service. We have, I was just thinking, we have 2 interns who got hired in the hospitals, one at Bellin and one at St. Vincent, which that's kind of rare. they're not in this program to get employed through the hospital, but it does happen from time to time. We have a few who worked through Packer Fastener, an awesome program, an awesome, not program, business that hires, well, everybody, but they're particularly friendly to people with disabilities. It's a manufacturing type place. Yeah, I should really be prepared for this question. I mean, they get hired wherever, someone just got hired at a recycling.
So they have those transferable job skills that they can take anywhere and
And-
have to be in.
Yes, and that's the whole point of Project Search, is not to get specific skills, but to get those transferable skills that they're gonna be able to use anywhere.
I think it's important to know that there is a cost to Project Search. And my son went through Project Search, and I can't say enough about Project Search. But I went to the school and they paid, they paid for
The
it.
school pays for.
I don't know how rare that is if they're paid for it, but the school, I didn't go to school, and they found it very valuable for my son, and they've actually got him there and every day, 45 minutes.
Project Search loves your son too.
Yeah. I can't say enough about it. Yeah. Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
I looked online and saw that through Aspirus in Wausau, the project program is available at Aspirus in Wausau. Is there someone I can get in touch with that particular?
That I don't, I you probably get that information online.
Rod, who we have presented yesterday, might have a connection with that because he's in north central Wisconsin, so I think it is.
Okay.
Yes, there is also a program at the Milwaukee Zoo and the Kalahari and the Dells. Usually the thing they have in common is there's a lot of different types of jobs available in that sort of organization. So I'm so certain there's something that I'm forgetting to say, but thank you for your patience with me. It's been quite a morning, and this is almost harder than going and teaching interns and going on the jobs.
Thank you very much, and yes, we will put your actual slide deck in.
Thank you. I will.
We are going to have Megan and then, that's okay, and yes. We did, okay, and I don't have my phone here. Okay, perfect. All right, so Megan Girl is going to talk to us about Valley Packaging.
I did see it up there. Oh, yep. All right. Yeah, I did. All right. So Megan Girl.
Hi, my name is Megan Gill. I am the Director of Community Programs at EPI, formerly known as Valley Packaging. Just here to talk a little bit about a program that we piloted this summer and some of our other education. All right, so we'll go over just BPI, our education programs, our manufacturing camp, and then how we assess this. So BPI is a nonprofit organization. So we are one of those community providers that has been discussed for providing employment services, and we've been around for the decade. We do run over 20 human services programs. So we were known as Valley Packaging, changed it to BPI because we're so much more than just an in-house packaging company. So we do early intervention or birth to 3 services, a number of different education programs, primarily focused on transition age youth, employment placement services, mental health programs, mental health navigation, drop-in center, things like that, and social and recreational services, so day services, Special Olympics, those types of things. And our mission is really to promote the dignity and worth of individuals with disabilities or disadvantaged, and to assist them in developing their optimum level of social, educational, and economic independence in the community. So our education programs, we have over 8 education programs, and we are always kind of developing, changing what we're offering to meet the changing needs of the students that we're serving and the geographic areas we're serving. VPI as a whole, we serve Fond du Lac, Winnebago, Allegheny, Matt, and Waupaca counties. But right now, our education programs are primarily really focused in the Fox cities, Neenah, Appleton, Hortonville, Kimberly, those places. The majority of our education programs do include a paid work component. So we work with students referred for a variety of reasons. Generally, they have an IEP, but not always. We do get some students who are credit deficient and just attending school as it's set up is really difficult for them. But most include that paid work component, and we've seen that that really helps with some of the attendance and the motivation to attend. Our education programs are really based on our own community partnerships. So we've been really fortunate to have a lot of really awesome employers in our area to work with, and some really large employers as well. So US Venture, Kimberly Clark, UW Oshkosh, we're primarily on their Fox Cities campus. They've been an awesome partner as well. We have a project search at the St. Elizabeth Hospital, Riverview Gardens, YMCA, just many other community employers. So we're always kind of adjusting, adapting, and adding programming to best meet the needs and try to figure out where there's gaps in our community, what experiences aren't available to individuals, who are the individuals falling through those cracks, and then how can we serve them. So what we're offering now might not be what we're offering in 2 years. We may have phased some out that we have decided aren't really meeting the needs, and we may have added some programs. So our education programs, we have Project Search, Skills for Work, which is a program out at US Venture, our summer employment skills training, our Thrive Career Academy, and I have little brochures and these are on our website as well. Our summer employment skills training is really a program we work with DDR for. It's just really designed for 14 to 16-year-olds. Like, hey, you might want to be interested in working. Let's do a little bit of interactive classroom on soft skills and then do a really short, like 2-week work experience. Just kind of see what that's like during your summer. We're not going to take your whole summer. That's important. Our Thrive Career Academy, which is at UWO, kind of helping people get a college type experience for individuals who may not be looking to go on to college in the traditional way, but something that maybe the student or their family is important for them. General curriculums of skills to pay the bills and explore work. We partnered with the YMCA and Neenah to open up their cafe and really use that as a training ground for our students. And then direct school district contracts. So we've seen with a lot of the staffing shortages, school districts are able to contract directly with us, and then we're providing those job development services, the skill instruction, transportation, whatever schools may have normally been provided, but aren't able to due to the shortage of teachers and paraprofessionals. And then the program I'll focus on today are Nbt Inclusion Manufacturing Camp, and then also school work in our production setting. So our Nbt Inclusion Camp. So there is, and this is a real thing, it's the Nuts Bolts and Thingamajigs Foundation. And my CEO is like, I started meeting with this guy in 2020 and he was like, oh, I've got money. We're from the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association and we want to do these camps. And my CEO just kept saying like, Megan, this is not a real thing. This doesn't exist. I'm like, no, it is. It is a real thing. And it is. So really the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association is a trade association for really primarily it would be more metal manufacturers, but I think it's grown into really a lot of these significant companies across the world who are manufacturing. So NBT's mission is really focused on the manufacturing workforce and expanding that. So they do a number of different things. They do a lot of scholarships for students going into 2-year and 4-year colleges in some of those manufacturing related majors. And they've really focused on summer camps for individuals 12 to 16 to try to start that interest in manufacturing young. So their summer camps have been really successful at increasing awareness of jobs in the manufacturing industry and also generating interest from individuals who may not have considered those types of careers or who may have had stereotypes based upon really outdated manufacturing settings and things like that. So in looking with the workforce, NBT, they worked with the Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation and Nestle, and they wrote grants to pilot 3 inclusion manufacturing camps. So looking at a different population of individuals with disabilities and how they can help fill some of these roles that we're still struggling to fill in our manufacturing settings. So providing real pathways to meaningful careers and really looking at those who have been underserved. So, you know, a lot of times we look at our students with disabilities and we see them going into service industry careers. A lot of work, a lot of work that is generally low paying, may not come with benefits. And at least in the Appleton area, we have a ton of manufacturing jobs. They start out at really good pay, really good benefits for individuals who may not always need some of those long-term supports that they might get through medical assistance. These are a way for them to really be able to have a sustainable lifestyle long-term. So these pilot camps really looking at the differences in what the camp can do for individuals with disabilities. So our specific camp at BPI, so there were 3 pilot camps. There was one in Illinois, there was one at BPI, and then there's going to be one in Florida in January. I think that one is still happening, but that may be delayed at this point with the hurricane. So everybody kind of chose a different way to run their camp. So I'm going to talk about how we ran the camp at BPI, and this seems to be the method that they're kind of going through as they look to roll these out nationwide. The Nbt camps for 12 to 16-year-olds are available nationwide and in Canada as well. They run about 160 of those camps each year. So our camp was 4 weeks in duration. We ran Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it was at our production facility. So BPI, we have 2 production facilities in Appleton where we do co-packing work. On production lines, the majority of our employees are hired just off the street. They apply for production jobs like you or I would. But we also do have some individuals with disabilities working in our setting as well. We are on the fixed bus route, so we're fortunate to have that in Appleton. But we also have individuals riding paratransit, families, and then our BPI staff transported individuals as well. The great thing about this camp was it was completely funded by Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation and Nestle. So everything was just kind of paid for in one lump sum. All of our costs were covered. So there was no cost to the students or families. There was no cost to DVR, no cost to school districts, anything. It was just completely covered. I don't know if any service providers have to write those DVR reports. Let me tell you, not having to do that was pretty amazing. So that was kind of the setup of the camp. On those days, so we ran Monday through Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday were really our days that we were at our own production facility. The students would come in, they'd come in at 9 o'clock in the morning. They'd use their badge, they'd punch in, and they'd go right to work on their production line. And then what we do from 11 to 12 is do some classroom, really focusing on soft skills. So a lot of the students we all were 16 and older, and that was just our ages required to work on our equipment from a safety standpoint. But a lot of them did not have a lot of experience in the workforce. So giving time to kind of process and debrief and use interactive activities to focus on some of the soft skills was really great too. We primarily utilize the Skills to Pay the Bills curriculum, but really focused on the activities. So we really didn't do much with the journaling activities or the activities with Skills to Pay the Bills that require a lot of reading and writing. We tried to keep it really interactive as we find the reading and writing portion of that curriculum can be, it just presents a lot of barriers for the individuals we work with. So we also did some practice job applications and online job searching, really for manufacturing jobs. And focusing the job searches there. So we really didn't do a lot with like resume development because at least in our Appleton area, you don't need a resume to go work in a manufacturing job. You pretty much have to be able to fill out the online applications. I think these are really cool. Our first day, we did welcome and introductions. We had our safety manager go over general workplace safety and workplace safety around the production equipment. We did a tour and then we did our onboarding with HR. So all of the students were paid for their work. We paid them $10 an hour. So they all got ID badges like I had, and they had to remember to bring these and remember to punch in and out. So all of those things that really as any employee would have to do, the students had to do for us. Our Thursdays were really fun. So Thursdays we did employer tours, and this was something that we do in a lot of our education programs. Our employer tours are job shadows, but it's also something that MBT is part of their traditional manufacturing camps, does a lot of as well. So we're a co-packer, we don't really make things, we just put things into different numbers than they came in. So we have boxes of 8, now they need to go to 6. So we use a lot of equipment, but we're not really producing anything. So we went to a few different employers trying to really tap into a variety of what the Appleton area has for manufacturing. So we went to JJ Color. They do a lot of safety equipment. So we saw a lot of books being bound, really giant printers, metal cutting for signs on the back of trucks, different things like that. We went to do Common, and they do circuit boards for like missiles and airplanes and stuff. Orbis Corporation, and they're a division of our NASHA packaging, or NASHA Corp. And they do the best way to, like, when you do like pick up at Walmart and they bring stuff out to your cart, they have those special carts where the bottom kind of raises up as items get taken out, like that's what they built there. And then EMS by Kenrich, and they do motors there. So really trying to just expose the students to a variety of different things, which was really great because you would have students say like, oh yeah, I could totally work at JJ Color, but with circuit boards it's too common where I'm down in one spot all today, no, can't do that, but and vice versa. So just really seeing a variety of things. So we would prepare questions in advance just to try to make sure every student was interacting during the tour with the employer. It turned out that with the tours, the employers did such an awesome job and were so engaging. The students never even had to fall back on the questions that they prepared just in case they were nervous. They were right up there, and I've got I'll share. But they were right up there asking questions. And then when we returned, we would write and send thank you notes to all of the staff at the employer. And then we also have our own buses. So we provided our own transportation to and from all of those employer sites on our VPI buses. So here's some pictures of the tours, but the students were really engaged in the different tours. So we're looking at what's being found at JJ Color. Do Common had a whole kind of training room set up where they could actually try some of the things on circuit boards. So they were pretty excited about that. They also got soda and candy there, so it was like a really big deal. And then just looking at some of the equipment and machinery at some of the other places. So our students were really engaged in the tours. I think it was a nice break midweek for some of these folks who hadn't worked before, and it was their summer. So definitely gave them a nice break in that regard. And then this is some of the jobs that they were doing in our facility. So we have a isolated clean room. So they were really having to go through that whole process of kind of gowning up, making sure we have hairnets on, lab coats, gloves, all of those different types of things. And our students really did surprisingly well with it. I wasn't really sure. We had about 11 students, and the majority of them did have a diagnosis of an autism spectrum disorder, but they did really great with putting on the appropriate clothing necessary for the clean room. We didn't have anybody who couldn't not participate back there because of that. So one of the jobs we were doing were those Reynolds oven bags. So or actually slow cooker liners, I believe it was. So just different steps of putting the slow cooker liner in boxes. And then really we had that kind of broken down. So we had one line where there was really an automated machine where you're just kind of feeding into the machine, and then one line where it's fairly automated, but there's more people along the way, and then one where it's really hand packing, moving down slowly. And we were able to kind of start them at hand packing, and then as they were more comfortable with it, kind of understanding like, hey, we're hand packing all of this, We step over to this line, this is a little bit more automated. Okay, we're comfortable with this, we can do that. Next line, that's pretty much really fully automated and we're just feeding and stocking that machine. We also do a lot of work with feminine hygiene products, tissue, Kleenex, different things like that. So really running through on lines that may be an automatic conveyor where they're keeping up a pace, or they may be on these rollers. And the students are really just making sure for safety, they're practicing their counting, they may be using these tape machines, case erector machines, and just kind of feeding everything through. So they all did a really great job. And we only had one female student participating in the camp, and she more than held her own with all the boys who were participating. She actually had done one of our other summer programs, and it was a struggle. We saw a lot of refusal to participate when we had her for the first 4 weeks in our summer employment skills training program. We had her out in the community for a work experience at Steins. And it was a struggle. She really struggled with those types of settings. But when we saw her in our setting, she just kind of blossomed. And what we realized was she liked to be able to see work actually get done. So she could see those boxes start out, not have anything in them, and then get done. And that was really satisfying for her. So her parents said, oh, this manufacturing, this is something that's actually a good fit for her. All of these things that they've classified as behaviors at other jobs or other work experiences, they're not really behavior. She just doesn't know when she's finishing something. She just doesn't have that sense of accomplishment. So now her career path really changing from some of those like entry-level service jobs that they thought, oh, well, this is what individuals with disabilities do, to something where she can walk in this production environment and she can more than hold her own with anybody else in there. And then just some of our classrooms. So we do have a classroom on site that we were able to use, but we also go outside of it. That's one of the skills to pay the bills activities where you throw eggs at the wall. I don't know if anyone's ever done that with their class, but it's about resiliency, throwing an egg in a bouncy ball and talking about being able to bounce back from adversity and things like that. And it's pretty much a favorite. So if you have a spot, definitely recommend that one. But it was nice. We were really able to do a lot of skill building and talk about some of the communication things that we would see out on the lines. Sometimes we have students and they may struggle with communicating, or maybe they went to high school together and they weren't really getting along great in high school. So using some of that classroom time to do some restorative communication practices, but also look at just our general soft skills, again, talking about hygiene, professionalism, all of those different things that we were able to then really tie in while they're on the work site. So another tool that we brought in was the Voc Fit assessment. I don't know, has anybody used Voc Fit? I know they use it at Project Search. So it is supported by Ohio State University, Colorado State, and the National Institute of Health. And it's free. If you Google Voc Fit, it comes up, you can create a login. It's completely free. It's amazing. And what it allows you to do is pretty simply assess participant abilities and job advance. So when we look at Voc Fit, it's on basically a 2-point scale. So 0 points are low, meaning either the student or the individual you're assessing has low skill in that area. And if you're assessing a job, that job doesn't require a lot of that task. Some, or like a 1, so kind of same thing, the individual has some skill in that area. And if it's a job, the job requires some of that. And then high, so that would be a 2. The individual is fairly highly skilled in that area. And then if it's a job, the job requires a lot of that skill. We see that popping up very consistently in that job. But what this allows us to do is track growth over time and figure out areas where additional support might be needed. So we can go in and we can assess a student, and we usually do this in all of our education programs now. The first week they're on the job, and we go through and we rate that student as low, some, or high in all of these different areas. And then we kind of have our baseline, and then we look and we do this midway through the program and then at the end of the program. So Some of our programs are 4 weeks, a month long, some are semester long, some are year long. So in Project Search, we do that in each of our 20-week internships, beginning, middle, end. So they're just split out different ways. But the program will actually run a comparison for you, and it'll chart, and it'll make your chart for you, and it'll tell you, hey, there was a 33% growth in this area. So it's pretty awesome, and you can just kind of screenshot those graphs and things right out of there, which is amazing. They will also do job matching reports. So we are also able to go in and enter our jobs. They might be jobs that we have at one of our programs. They might be a community job that one of our students is working. And we can go through and we can essentially rate that job on how much those skills are required. And then we can run a job match for it. And then that's going to give us areas of, hey, yes, this individual has a lot of skill in this area and that job requires a lot of that skill. Or this individual is pretty low in these skills and the job requires a lot of these skills. So that might not be a good match. What we're really looking for is the jobs require skills, maybe some are high, and that individual maybe has some skill in that area. So we still want an area of growth. We don't want to always see a job, at least when we're working, because these are still students. This isn't their permanent job placement always, or it might be, but we still have them in high school. So we are looking for some of that area where we can still find growth. You know, if it was 100%, they have all the skills for the job, and that's all the job requires. Maybe they're not going to grow as much. So let's see where we can kind of push them, help them grow. So this slide got a little messed up. There are 11 different categories. So it looks at physical abilities, self-determination, just kind of general work things, accepting praise, admitting mistakes, safety, work structure, which is just kind of like all of those different, like your schedule of work week, punching in and out, those different types of things. Cognitive abilities, computer skills, higher task related abilities, lower task related abilities, communication skills, and interpersonal skills. So this is just specific to our Nbt Inclusion Manufacturing Camp. So when we looked at just 4 weeks of these students being in our program, we really saw pretty significant growth from rating from 1st week to 4th week. So honestly, it surprised me. I didn't know that we would see this much in just 4 weeks, but we really saw the most significant growth in our work structure. We saw 9% increase, cognitive abilities, 21%. And then the higher and lower task related, a 41% increase and a 34% increase. And those are really where some of those basic manufacturing skills come into play. How do you like notice when something is running out of product? How do you reload product in something? Those different types of things that are really going to be the hard skills that carry over into other manufacturing environments. And then communication skills and interpersonal skills. So a lot of growth in those areas as well. So, and we were, and these, if the PowerPoint is going out after, there's some links, but we were featured on WBAY and then an article in the Post Crescent as well. So the WBAY article is good. It has some video from there.
Questions for Megan on the program? So we're going to take a 5-ish minute break. So we'll refresh your coffee, grab a muffin, go around the corner, use the restrooms, and we will come back with both DVRs.
I know.
All right, we are ready to do. So I'm just gonna do an intro on myself, homework. It's going to The PowerPoint presentation, to a little nervous, so can we all turn the other way? So tribal vocational rehabilitation programs have been around for about 30 years. I've kind of found that the American people weren't being treated equally or fairly as others, and there wasn't enough to go to all of the areas, so it was created American Indian Vocational Rehabilitation Services through DOE, which tribes can put in programs through that program. Ours is every 5 years, so we're starting our 4th year this year. And next year we'll be getting a notice to apply for the next 5 years, and hopefully we'll be successful with that. And you know, we're similar to the state. We're a little bit easier, I would say, because the state has a lot of, you know, processes and forms and things like that. And we can just about do everything, you know, within our offices here, but following federal guidelines. So we have numbers we have to fulfill. And that is, you know, when we do that, we are able to get a renewed contract every year. So I think we've done fairly well. I've been doing that for 8 years. Our program has been in existence for 15 years. So someone was ahead of me for 7 years, and I took over 8 years ago. So I was kind of pushed into it because I was running another state tribal federal program called TRIO, Youth Support Services. I was the director of that. So they wanted me to take this over because of my knowledge of that. So I'm very happy to do it because I love working with. Like I said, I'm a school counselor by profession, and I worked in the schools for many years, so I know, you know, and I just feel overwhelmed by the things that you have done, which is reported on. Just amazing how much you're way out there working with all these areas, and we're kind of confined to 30 miles within our reservation. So we're kind of limited in what we can do, but we do as much as we can with all the teams that we have. But Antoinette will go into a little bit more of that.
Thank you. Again, my name is Antoinette Davis. I am a counselor and a career placement coordinator for the Menominee Vocational Rehabilitation Program. Little background on me. I've been with the College of Menominee where we're located for 23 years. And I have been promoting the college. I've been a guidance counselor, and I have been at every one of our sites as coordinator. So by show of hand, how many of you are working with Native American students? By show of hands, I'm working on their transition plan. Excellent, excellent to see. We work with trying to keep up with the PowerPoint here. So we provide vocational rehabilitation services to the American Indian and Alaskan Native with disabilities. So Myrna went into some of this with the federal and state reservation and Alaskan Native villages. This is some of the background that we follow for vocational rehabilitation. Well, no, we work with our program works with the disabled tribal members. For our tribes, they have to be enrolled tribal members to work with the Menominee vocational rehabilitation program. So the Menominee vocational rehabilitation works with these goals for Native Americans in our community as well as in our schools. And we help them prepare for employment, self-employment. We do career counseling for all of our consumers. We call our clients consumers. The job search activity, the work experience, which is the trial work experience, some of the others mentioned. And we have the opportunity to work right on campus with the college technical education programs, as well as the associates and the bachelors for CMN. So we're right on campus. They have the workshops on campus and their workplace needs. So what we have the opportunity on the college campus is to work with the Menominee Job Center, the College of Menominee Nation, the Menominee Higher Education Office,
We have state come to our office every other week and work with our defendants and non-tribal members. And we have VR right on campus, so they can do everything in one stop. shop, we call ourselves. So here's our eligibility requirements. Our individuals who apply must be enrolled Native American of any tribe and Alaska Native. They must, they need proof of this tribal enrollment. So there is an ID or a letter that must come from enrollment office, which we assist them. Assist the students with if they need assistance. They must have a physical or mental impairment. And they, as Mern mentioned, reside within 30 miles of the reservation line. So we come out this far. Gillett, I say Bondwell, we go Wittenberg, I think we've been out, we've worked with Wittenberg. Next slide. So here is, we have Sue White who works with the high school counselor. And she gets invited in for IEP. Would love the opportunity to come in for the IEP meeting. So this, we are contacted by the referring school. We usually are invited first before we make presence at that high school. She attends the IEP team meetings, which includes the parents. The part 1 referral, I have a sample on all of your tables. Is the form we speak of. This is filled out and worked with the student, the parent, and the IEP team. And then the students are advised to apply as they are graduating through the transition. Part 2 is when they are graduating. They come in, they apply, and we work on the intake interview. We have to gather those documents of disability, the tribal ID. Once made eligible, we are developing the individual plan of employment. And together as a partner, we work on what they see as a need for their a need of services for finding gainful employment. That's our goal. So we have the high school. You can read it. Majority of our activity is guidance and counseling. We work a lot with guiding them, helping them learn research, developing their skills. We have a skills lab, the Menominee. There's a second page that I've given you. Just a touch on what services we have done. With our skills lab, we purchase programs. We have developed Technomedia, MindPlay, Modumath, the algebra. And we go to transition, we go to fair, and then there's the transition fair. Our transition fair is October 13th. I'm not sure if any of you are coming with your students, but October 13th, we have about 100 students come to the College of Menominee Nation. I'm coming forward. Thank you, forward. To our transition fair, and they learn a lot about what's going on in our area. So this is the area we were talking about, the 30-mile. We work a lot with the Shawano multicultural program. I meet with their students. I'm invited in. I'd love to work with the Gillett School and Bondwell more, but we've been in Bowler. And the Stockbridge Muncie Reservation is another one of our areas that we do a lot in. Gresham and Wittenberg. So touch base on some of the stuff. The Zello is now career cruising. We do assessments. We have Dr. Donna Paulus in to work on assessment, soft skills, computer training. A lot of our community members do not have computer skills. So we start from basics with them because some of them don't want to take a course in it, but they want to just learn. So they use our skills lab.
The interviewing skills, we help them with their resumes. We attend job fairs, the CMN programs are a big one. The monthly cultural event. I put this down is because, PR goes to the community members. They don't usually find us, we go to them, so we're attending every event. Most events, especially the major events, to promote. It may be in the evening, it may be on weekends, but we promote PR, getting the information on how these services are out for our tribal members with disabilities. I even go into the jails and promote VR because a lot of them will need services. Okay, just to recap, here's step one, we do the referral form. We work with them on this. The application, it's step two, we gather the information. And we do sort of a thorough orientation on what it is all about, which is working. It's not just for services, it's about gaining employment. So that's a big one for the step two process. And see here, we do the ROIs. We need information from their providers. So they will sign ROIs for us so that we can get the documents that we need to make them eligible. Then there's the individual plan of employment. The ICP is developed as joint partners to, they pretty much help me guide them to where they want to be. Without ever, I want it made clear that I'm not telling them what to do, but they're telling me what they want to do. And there's the consumer responsibilities, the VR counselor's responsibilities, and the other responsibilities of agencies. Step 4, employment and follow-up, and step 5, closure, successful closure. So then we also have post-employment services. Those are services after they have gained employment. We also provide those services. Here is our contact information. If you will. Yeah. Any questions?
You take kids who are going to get a high school diploma, are choosing not to get a high school diploma.
Absolutely, we'll work with them.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily with a disability.
So they have to have a disability and they have to be enrolled. Those are our requirements, enrollment, living in our area, there's the document.
We help people, we have a GED person right on campus. And so we will refer them over to her to help them get through.
Yes.
Any age, we have one we call a doctor, Davis, he's about 60.
Yeah. So I just want to end with one of our transition students successes. We worked with the Menominee High School and we worked with about 6 students with IEP. They came over with their special ed teacher and they worked alongside with me on career development skills. So what they wanted to do was go out and see what these places are all about. They didn't just want to look online for what was available. They wanted to go out and look and see. So I coordinated about 35 companies to meet and greet my students. And so I took them out to each individual company. They were field trips and they learned about the Menominee tribal enterprises and they saw the machine. They received a huge tour and the laws and what they had to do to work these laws into lumber. And we went to the casino. We've been to the College of Nomination, the local grocery store, and even KI and Von Wells showed them around. But their most favorite was the pizza restaurant. They learned to make pizza, they learned to set a table, clear a table, and then they got to eat. So they really enjoyed that and like you had food and And they're good, so, and they also prepared questions to ask on, why would I want to work here? How do I apply? What are the benefits? And so, but it went so smoothly that they didn't even need their part. They just asked the question and they did really well during that, semester. Really enjoyed that. Humane Society. Oh, yes, we actually had placements at the Humane Society, the casino, and the local grocery store. Thank you for your time. No. Friendly meeting. Yeah, what is it? From the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Like already see, I didn't find it on there. It's gonna tickle, but it'll be on the end, yeah. So I'm a counselor with, it's the Department of Workforce Development, and we're in the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So I cover, Oconto County, Menominee County. We've had a few staff changes, so I'll be the covering counselor in Toronto County, but we do have a new case manager who will be starting. I just want to put that little plug in there, which is super exciting. She starts next week. So the Toronto School, you guys will probably have a transition onto her eventually once she's trained. And then I also have with me Carrie. She's here today, Carrie Wild, and she covers Marinette and Florence County. And you're also getting the case manager too.
Yes. Yeah.
We've been a little short-staffed in DVR, so. All right, so what is DVR? So again, we're the Division of Voc Rehab. We provide individualized services to people with disabilities who want to work. So specifically here would be students. Our services include vocational counseling, skills development, temporary work experiences, which, as Antoinette was saying, they have trial work experiences, so very similar. Supported employment services, and then any education necessary for achieving career growth. So that would be those like soft skills training. I know other people have already mentioned services that we do, so let me get into that too. Our mission, so we like to help people find a job, keep a job, or get a better job. So sometimes we have people who are already working, but let's say they want to further their education to get a better job, come to us. They may be struggling to keep their current job. We can do that as well. All right, so we're actively engaged with so we are statewide. So we have nearly 16,000 job seekers. We assist with developing a plan for employment, but I'll go into that a little bit further into my next slides here. Here's our different areas. So Carrie and I are from WDA 5, so the workforce development area. That does cover Shawano. I do see someone had a question about Langley County, and they're actually in 6. So the way we're split is a little bit different than the way the schools are split, but there's 11 WTAs. Okay, so to apply for DVR, so I kind of want to give the overview of like how to apply, what we do, and then some of our specific programs. So in order to be an applicant for DVR, especially in this room for the high school students, you have to have a disability. And we like the students to apply at least 2 years before they graduate. It gives us some time to get those plans developed, start that career counseling. For those who are under 18 or those over 18 who are not their own guardian, the legal guardian must sign off on the paperwork. So at the end of the application, there's a little signature. Referrals can be done online, by mail, or in person. I did bring some with me. If anyone wants to take them back with them, they can. We also have what's called a potentially eligible referral. So getting started with DVR, the biggest, I guess, complaint people have is that it takes a while. You know, we have to gather their medical documentation to ensure that they have a documented disability. We have to complete intakes. We have to determine them eligible. So it kind of is a process. But with the potentially eligible with our students, the school can sign off saying, yes, we know they have a disability, and we can get them started right away. And then once they're with us, we can work on getting them a full application and becoming a full participant with DVR. But that's just a quick way to get started with us. Kind of bypasses the whole application right away. Okay, so again, to be eligible, you must have a documented medical or psychological disability. Again, we'll work with them to gather the documentation, their releases. We schedule a meeting to discuss. So it's usually that intake. We use the information that we gather them to determine their eligibility. And we can also do assessments if they don't have, maybe you might know, I think this individual is struggling with something. They might not have a provider. They might not have had any psychological testing done. We can actually do that prior to assist in developing that documentations to find them out. Okay. And then once they're eligible, we do have an order of selection. So this is kind of where we place our consumers once they're determined eligible. And what part of their eligibility is we look at their mobility, communication, self-care, self-direction, their interpersonal skills, work tolerance, and work skills. Right now we're serving everybody. We used to have long wait lists to be in DVR. We used to put people on a wait list and then would call them off as they came up. They would be placed based on their needs. So category 1 would be their highest need, which I think is the next slide. Yep. Category 2, they would have 1 to 3 serious limitations in those other areas. And then category 3, there would be 0. There is still a wait list for category 3, but right now they're taking people off as it comes. So about once a month, we'll get an email. If you have anyone in category 3, they'll start taking them off that wait list. Okay, once they're determined eligible, the counselors determine that eligibility, and then as the counselors, we start writing that plan. We have 90 days to write their plan for employment. That can be extended if we're doing some assessments with them or other things that we need to assist us in writing the plan. The plan includes their job goal, the services we're providing, progress measures for each of those services, their service providers. Sometimes that's not determined yet, who they're going to be working with, their responsibilities, and then DVR's responsibilities. We also, the big part of DVR is because we are a rehabilitation program, we always want to be addressing their disabilities and how are they going to, let's say, overcome them, because those disabilities are the barriers that make them eligible for our services. Is that a water? Thank you. I have a water, but I forgot to bring it up.
That's okay.
Okay, it is dry in here. All right, where was I? So yeah, any disabilities we want to include and how they're going to be accommodated. Sometimes this too will be, we might be asking them to go back to their doctors to get notes on their accommodations. We've had consumers bring us documentation saying that they can only work, let's say, 4 hours, or they can only lift 20 pounds, whatever it is, we might need that documentation. Okay. So part of our best practices, so we like to include this because this is how we're working with our other partners in the community. We like to meet each consumer where they're at. We require monthly contact from each consumer. A lot of times with our students, we're probably talking to them more than that, but it has to be at least monthly. We use trauma-informed care approaches, and then we also assist in providing accommodation. And they work. I didn't put that in there, but. All right. So part of our other policy, and I know this might have been brought up with some of the other programs that work with us earlier in today's sessions, but so we do look at other community resources before DVR funds the service. So, we look at financial aid, transit services, libraries, computer labs, high school transition services that are already being provided. County, so if they're part of the children's waiver program or children's long-term support. And then as they get older into the family care or IRIS. So there is cost sharing between DVR and the school, so between the youth apprenticeship program. So like the school might provide the job placement, but then DVR, we would provide that job coach. So kind of that grading of services that he was talking about earlier. The school pays for part of it, we pay for part of it, however we work that out. We do have guidance pieces on, what DVR should be funding. And then also making those referrals to the ADRC and other communities. So, okay, so this is the big piece of what does DVR do? So we assist with transition services, so really starting with that job exploration and counseling. So exploring different options with the student. That can include maybe some job shadows. So right now I'm working with a consumer who is in the 18 to 21 program. They're at school part of the day, but then maybe they do some job shadows. The school brings them to the site. Our job developer meets them there. They do some shadows and review. Then we review after. There's also work-based learning experiences. So again, those temporary work experiences. So with those, they are temporary. So we might have a student who wants to try out a job. Let's say they've never worked before. We don't know their work tolerance. We don't know how are they going to get to and from work. Will this be a good fit? So we might do that work experience where our job developer would identify an employer who would be willing to allow a work experience. DVR does fund the wages for it, and they can be up to 3 months. We do those a lot in the summer. That's a perfect time to do it. We also do any counseling on post-secondary educational programs. So with this, we might have students who are looking to attend, technical college, a 4-year degree. So we would counsel them and look at the labor market, going into that program if it's needed, if a 4-year degree is needed, or if it's only a 2-year degree is needed, all of that we can assist with. And then any work-based readiness training. So that was the skills to pay the bills that they were talking about before. That's a soft skills training class that looks at communication, finances. There's a self-advocacy portion on it. And again, we're offered year-round and can be done outside the school day, sometimes as well as during the school day. That does happen. Kind of depends on what the students' schedule looks like. Okay, and the job explorer, I don't have a handout with me, but what I'll do is, can I email it so you can save it?
Absolutely. We'll put it right in the folder.
Okay, we don't have a color printer, so when we print them black and white, they don't look very nice. So you guys will have a copy of it. So Job Explorer, I really like to push this. This is a great program that we offer. Job Explorer starts in January, and goes into the summer. You typically offer it after school, and then they like to mix up different schools so that students are working with students that they don't know, that they're, learning new ideas. So they're not with the same group of kids that they are with all day. But they do the workplace readiness training part 1. So it's typically once a week that they offer different classes. They do a financial literacy class. Again, the skills to pay the bills class, a self-advocacy class, and then once summer comes up, they do an internship. So they learn all of these great skills all school year, and then they use it in the summer. Trying to think about that. And so with the internship, the job developer essentially assists in finding those. you know, the biggest thing with those are gonna be transportation again. You know, other people have touched on it, but that is the hardest piece.
What is the age of this program?
Typically, we like to see the juniors do it. That way, if they do get hired on after their work experience, they can work that last year, their senior year yet. But really, we work with anyone 14 and older, so it's not limited just to that population, but we like to see junior year. Okay, and just a little bit more. Program, so Explore Work is a little bit of a newer program. I think it's been around like 2 years now. Is that about right? I think only 2 years. So it is web-based, it's really targeted at our youth, but we do have adults that do it as well. Let's say they don't have work experience. Or we think it would be appropriate. It's good to be a little bit careful on what adults we do, because we don't want it to feel too childlike. But the skills are taught in a variety of activities. They are taught with the job developer as well. So the courses are career planning and job explorations, your first work experiences, school beyond high school, workplace readiness, and then again, that self-advocacy. Now, we might have students who need all of these courses, or maybe just a couple. This one we can really tailor towards the student. Okay, so the biggest thing on how we can collaborate, and I know Antoinette touched on it a little bit already, because they do very similar things as we do, but invite DVR to the IEP meetings. That allows us to provide information, outreach services. This is important for students who are already enrolled with us, because we want to make sure that we're kind of working towards the same goal with each other. And then also any future DVR consumers. So, you know, if you want us to just provide the information to the family, we can do that at that IEP meeting. The other big thing, and this is why I really wanted Carrie here with me, is we want to schedule and attend regular office hours at the high school. And so I know, Carrie, if you want to just share briefly about what you do in your counties with your schools, that would be great.
So yeah, when I started last March, I kind of introduced myself to all the schools, and we sent out a survey and got feedback of when would be good for office hours. And because I cover such a wide range from up to Florence County, then based on some responses that we got, we set 3 days a month that I'm kind of traveling throughout throughout the whole area. So like the third Tuesday, I start out in the morning at Rocky, then from 9 to 11, and then go to Crivets, 11:30 to 1:30, and then to Coleman, before we kind of travel around. And then the fourth Tuesday, I'm starting out at Niagara, at 8:30 to 10, and then Florence, 10:30 to 12:30. And then I know Penn Valley, yeah, every other month, and Penn Valley, from 2 to 3. Was gonna put Goodman in there, but we switched Goodman to Wednesday now. So every other month is coming, and I think we just did that because it's a rural area that can always change too. If more referrals come in, and we see this amount of hours is going to change that and that. When adjusted, then the third Wednesday, I'm going in the morning to festival, 8 to 9:30, and then that on the 12, and then every other month to Goodman. That's kind of how I'm getting around to all my middle schools.
It's a lot, but we enjoy working with the students right now. I'm in Surrey, on the third Thursday of the month. I'm working with O'Connell Falls to try to get them there. I've been to one office hour with them, And we used to have them in O'Connell. We've had, again, some staff changes, and so it's been hard for us because we changed the school staff changes and then we kind of lose track of contact information. The Shawano schools, I know that they have set office hours. Allison Yang has been covering those right now. But that will probably change. The times will be the same, but the staff. So that's kind of where we're at with our high school that we cover in our area. There might be other schools that aren't in WDA 5 that are in CESA 8, but it might be a different coverage. So again, we like to align our transition goals between DVR and high school. So if you guys have already been talking about, you know, post-secondary things or even what the student wants to do after high school, definitely invite us. We're a good partner in that conversation. Okay, and then other best practices. So we help people connect with their barriers to employment, leveraging all available agencies and resources. We're really getting that ADRC involved as well. Focus should always be on the consumer and their employment outcomes. Every consumer's case is very different. And so every goal that we write is very different. The services we provide are individualized. And then the biggest thing is communication. Sometimes parents are telling the school one thing, they're telling us another thing. Sometimes there's confusion as to what's actually going on. So getting us all at the table, really talk about what's going to be best for that student. Sometimes what the student wants is very different than what the parents want. And you know, the realistic goals that we might see and what they want to do. Again, looking at what's available in their areas. Okay, so what happens when DVR closes? So the students, you know, we're a voluntary program, so they can close their games at any time with us. They don't have to be involved with DVR. But we will close successfully when they've reached their employment goal and they've maintained that job for a minimum of 90 days. And sometimes it does take longer, sometimes it doesn't. But it has to be a minimum of 90. The used to provide, I know Antoinette, you guys mentioned it, those after closure you can provide services. With state DVR, we can't do that anymore. What we would recommend is that they just reapply. You can have as many cases with us as they would like. But we aren't able to provide any services without an open. Oh yeah, and then right there, reapply in the future. Okay, here's some resources. And then any questions on DVR? Yeah. I can look.
Okay.
I don't know off the top of my head, but we do have a DVR directory. And if you Google it, you can click what county. And it kind of hyperlinks you to that area.
You know, Allison has come to visit our schools just because there's supposed to say Shawano and Packard.
Are you Wittenberg?
Marion.
Wittenberg?
Marion.
Oh, in Marion, okay. I'll look. I know I can identify the supervisor, but I might not know the direct counsel, so I'll see if I can get. Yep. Any other questions? I'll provide. If it wants applications, I have them. If they want a card, I have that too. Yeah.
So, I started talking at the very beginning about youth apprenticeship. And that's what started us on our journey of investigating work-based learning for students with disabilities. So I do want to let you know, kind of what YA looks like, if it's not something you're familiar with, and what we can do for students through youth apprenticeship. So I'm going to jump down to, and I do have this in the folder, so you will have access to this. The DWD just revised all of the checklists. There we go. For youth apprenticeship. So it looks a little different if you have been familiar with it than it looked like before. We've always had what are called occupational competencies that students have to achieve within the time period that they have. So food and beverage, for example, is very popular with our students because a lot of them have been working at fast food restaurants, and it has in the past been able to align, but with some of the changes that have been made, we're getting into some tricky areas with fast food. But These are the competencies, and then the DWD also determines how much time it should take a student. So most students, if they don't have accommodations for food and beverage, for example, that would be a one-year program. However, we do have the option, if a student has an IEP and they need more time in order to accomplish those competencies, we can get extended time. So it is something that is a case-by-case basis. We just got an email from the DWD this morning. But if students need more time for the competencies, or they need more time for the in-class learning that they need to be doing, either of those can be stretched into a second year depending on how much time they need. So that's one accommodation that we have for our students with disabilities, is that we can increase the length of time for the apprenticeships. One thing that we're finding as the DWD is changing these competencies is that they are definitely increasing the rigor. So some of the things that have kind of been automatic, like fast food in the food and beverage, or kids can work at Walmart if they are doing merchandising. We have to be very careful about looking at the new competencies because they don't all align beautifully like they used to. And I'll show you an example of that. So students do have to have 450 hours. That's also something that we hear from especially our special education teachers, that it's really difficult to be pulling students out of school for 240 of that 400, and 250 of the 450 needs to be done during the school year. So that's another barrier that we see for our students with disabilities. So if we're able to stretch that out over 2 years instead of one, it means less time out of the classroom for those students. So that's another positive that we can accommodate for those students. And then the other thing is that while students are out doing youth apprenticeship, they need to be involved in related instruction, either 1 high school credit or up to 3 college credits. Here it says at least 3 college credits. We keep hearing different information on that. But that also, according to, if I was reading the email correctly that we got this morning, that's another thing that could be that they could get a longer time period to accomplish is that credit. But we have many of our special education teachers that are teaching courses for those students with disabilities, specifically targeting those employability skills and the types of activities that they need to do to be successful on the job. That can absolutely be the related instruction the student is doing. The DWD loves to see students in dual credit opportunities, and that would be great. But we know with many of our small districts, we're very flexible as to what we look at for that related instruction. Another thing that we look at with youth apprenticeship is, again, something new that was added. Students have to complete one of the 3 activities in career preparation as they're out doing youth apprenticeship. So they either need to be participating in the components of a local or regional career pathway. So that can only be checked if your district actually has a local or regional career pathway in the area the student is doing their youth apprenticeship. So if you have a student that is out working in manufacturing and you have a manufacturing pathway in your district, awesome, check that box. They're probably taking the coursework that would be found on the map, for example. So they would be participating, whatever. There's no form that they fill out saying, yes, I'm participating in the pathway, but that's what they would be doing. So if you have that pathway, that's an easy one to check. A second thing that students can do is get an industry recognized credential while they're in high school. And so we heard about for example, the certification that was set up through Shane's program, that students actually get a certificate for that detailing by the time they get done. That could qualify as the certificate that they're getting as they're doing youth apprenticeship, because you can't put other certificates. It didn't always used to say as identified by the technical incentive grant. Now it does say that. They give you examples of ones you can do and then other certificates. So we might have to, if it's not on that career and technical incentive grant, we might need to check with the DWD to see if it would be approved. But that's a second option for career preparation. And then the third is if students are participating in a dual enrollment course. So, you know, ideally, like if they are doing food service, if they were taking some kind of dual credit class that was in the food area, that would be the best. But again, we try to be flexible. So if a student is taking like an NWTC communications, we know that that's something that students would take anyway if they were working toward an associate degree, so that could qualify. But this is a new part of youth apprenticeship, so we just want to make sure that you are aware of that. But then once we get into the actual skills, the employability skills is common to all of the pathways. So the actual DPI employability skills certificate is the first part of the skills that students have to accomplish while they're out doing youth apprenticeship. They get scored from 1 to 3, 1 being lowest, 3 being, yep, they've got this. So 1 is, oh, they need a lot of support. 2 is they can do it with minimal support, and 3 is they have got this, I don't even need to be watching them. So students have to be at a 2 or a 3 for every single competency by the time they're done with the program. We are required by the DWD to have a minimum of 3 meetings with the employer and the student and the local coordinator. And usually we're in that as the regional YA coordinators, we're part of those conversations at least the first couple of years with a new local coordinator until they're very comfortable with it. But we actually have conversations about where is the student right now with regard to these competencies. And, you know, if it's at a 1, as the student is just getting started with the job, obviously, you know, they're going to be learning as they go along. So it's a great way for students to know what they need to work on, for employers to just be reminded that, hey, these are the criteria that you've assured us you're going to make sure these students have by the time they get done. And then it allows the local coordinator to take that information back to the district and give students a grade for youth apprenticeship, because that's a part of it as well, that they get graded for youth apprenticeship. And once they have those employability skills, every one of the pathways has specific competencies that the DWD, in conjunction with employers, has identified as the essential competencies for this particular pathway. So if you are, you know, as you're reading through these and, you know, it says managed service and production area operating procedures, and you or the employer or the student says, well, I don't know exactly what that means. The DWD has done a beautiful job of explaining what that means right underneath it. Students don't have to do every single thing that's listed underneath, but they should be able to, you know, do a good portion of them in order to be scored for that particular criteria. But so it's very easy for employers and students and local YA coordinators to see exactly what needs to be done in order for a student to accomplish this particular criteria. So that's a great conversation to have right at the very beginning. You do have students, especially your students that need accommodations, to have those conversations. And I would absolutely suggest that the special education teacher is part of those communications with the employer and the student and the local coordinator to make sure that accommodations are put in place for the students as they need them. DVR career coaches can work with students while they're doing youth apprenticeship as well. So that's, you know, something that, again, good thing for the employer to know that the student needs that particular accommodation. But going through every one of the criteria ahead of time and being assured by the employer that yes, they're going to be able to do these things. And just to give you an example of the food, they added a new area to food service, which is what is making it very difficult for our students who have always done this for as in fast food to accomplish this anymore, because they added formal dining room service. And students don't need to do every single thing on the list, because it talks about doing family service, English service, American service, French service. I don't even know what those are. Flying service, like what? But you know, formal dining services like bringing food to the table, knowing, you know, which side to serve it from, having correct plates and silverware on the table. If space is open at the table, removing the plate and silverware from any empty spots, knowing how to clear without disrupting your customers, all those kinds of things, which are nothing that is ever done in a fast food place. So this is where that the education portion can be part of this, because if, for example, a student is working at a fast food restaurant and this is the one skill they're never going to do there, but they're in a culinary class in school that the culinary teacher says, oh yeah, we absolutely cover that. The culinary teacher can actually score that particular criteria and sign off on it. So 10%, which is basically usually one of the competencies, if there's one particular competency that absolutely a student would never do on that particular job, but it is covered in class, it can be checked off. We had an example with merchandising is another one that a lot of times we'll have students working in retail. But they added a component that they have to do what is it called? E-commerce. E-commerce. So taking orders online and fulfilling those orders. Well, that's not something that's done by that particular store. Students are never going to have the opportunity to learn that particular component. But the business teacher said, oh yeah, I've got a whole unit on that in my class. So as long as the student is in that business class while they're doing youth apprenticeship, the business teacher can sign off on that one. So again, if you have youth apprenticeship, and we don't have every single district in CESA 8 that has youth apprenticeship available, but most of them do. It would be a great conversation to have with your local youth apprenticeship coordinator, because we definitely want to see those statistics increase for our students with disabilities. So how can we make sure that these employment opportunities are available for those students? Let's look at the competencies. Let's have conversations with employers. Let's reach out to the DWD and see if we can get an extended time for the student so that they can be successful in this program as well. I love some of the things that we heard about today. I think that you could build on those. So maybe a student starts out in a program like Shane's program, where it's a non-paid position, but they're getting all these great employability skills. And maybe they do that junior year, and then senior year. And if they're going beyond, if they're staying after they're 18 and they're delaying graduation, they could do this their senior year and the year that they're 19. So it could be stretched over 2 years, and they can go into that extended time that students are in school. As long as they have not graduated and they're still considered your students, they can be involved in youth apprenticeship program. Brooke, what did I miss?
I just wanted to share that I know not everyone is served by our Northwoods Consortium with Youth Apprenticeship, but we work with other consortiums throughout the state with meetings throughout our state WD, and they all are really trying to focus on the same goal. So this is, obviously the good for students for all. So we are just trying to promote these opportunities. Like Lynn said, like trying to find some progression is really ideal and key. So, as students, develop those skills, how can they extend those goals a little bit further? Yesterday, we did the same, a similar presentation set with our CESA 9 schools. And one of the shared information pieces was from Antigo. And they have a really great partnership with Goodwill. And so I asked if I could put Kathy on the spot, because White Lake is also a part of that particular partnership. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, who agreed reluctantly to share just a quick overview, because I think it's a really, really nice program.
Well, it is a nice program, and it started with that skills to pay the bills and DVR, because they have to have 8 students in order to run a class. We don't have 8 students in White Lake at one time that would be able to do that. So we partnered with Antigo School District, and Antigo was already in the Goodwill program. And so Michelle, Arlen, and I started talking about how I can get my kids there. And lo and behold, the next fall, I sent 2 of our students there. And one gained enough skills to end up at McDonald's working. The other one, he worked there for 2 years. And when he graduated in 2021, he was offered a job at Goodwill to work there. And so they end up working, they started the program with 3 days on the floor and 1 day in the classroom, learning those soft skills. There's always a classroom component to that. And so they have 1 day of classroom. Now they have 1 day of classroom and 4 days of work. So one success story is the student who got a job right after that. My 13-year senior, he came back because he recognized that he wasn't ready to go out there and try and find a job on his own. Could he please stay so we could teach him more? He went through the classroom now twice. He went to the team leader there and said, unbeknownst to the aide that works with them, can I just work another day instead of sitting in the classroom again? The aide thought he was asking, can I just take the day off? They approved that, so now he's working all 5 days. My other students that are there work 4 days and have 1 day of classroom. It's a very successful program. And from that stem other courses that they take through NTC in Wausau. They've gone through a culinary class, they've gone through other employability skills classes. So it was a great partnership for them and very successful. So I keep looking every year, who do I get to add? Because now I've got 3 students again this year.
And we do have Michelle's PowerPoint from yesterday, so you can put that in your folder today.
Yeah.
And you can check out their program. Kathy was talking about that. They're 1 day in the classroom. So she shared with us. She did kind of an asset scan of the district and said, where are things that need to be done in the district that my students can do to start gaining some of these job skills so that they can be successful when they go out to Goodwill. So she came up with a whole list of things that needs to be done around their school building that her students could do. So the office needs ice packs if a student gets injured. They can stop in once a week and make sure that those ice bags are filled. Deliveries need to be made for the office, so her students do that. They have a backpack program for their students that eat food on the weekend. So their students are the ones in charge of filling those backpacks on Fridays before they're taken. So what a great idea to go out and do an asset scan of your own building and find out what are things right now that your high school staff, your office staff, other people are doing that your students could be the ones in charge of that and gaining those really awesome job skills so that they are successful when they go out into.
I have 2 freshmen right now that I'm getting prepped for going to Goodwill when they're juniors by working in the clothing closet at school. I'm having them do those things so that when they get to Goodwill, they're going to be used to sorting clothes and folding clothes and the things that they're going to need when they go to Goodwill.
So questions on anything that I just covered with Youth Apprenticeship or just work-based learning in general?
Or if you have some good ideas that you want to share with the group too, that would be great.
And so we do also, as part of the, we want to acknowledge that and apologize for a little bit of the mix up this morning. We had a flyer that did have the correct time of 8:30 because we knew we were going to need extra time for all of our speakers. And then when it got posted into my quick reg, it got listed as 9 o'clock, which is the usual time for our school counselor network meeting. And so for those of you who came in at 9:30, or 9, and we were already going, we're sorry about that, but everything is recorded, so you didn't miss anything, and all the rest of the time will be 9 o'clock. But that the other, and we're some of you across the hall, to start off with, that's the other thing is the second that the posting said disabilities, the secretary on our curriculum instruction and assessment side said, oh, that's the other side of the building. So that's the other secretary that takes care of that. The whole idea behind this is we need to break down the silos. And so we've got the CIA side and the special education side together today in this meeting just because of that, because of the fact that we need to be talking together and making sure that our programs are successful for all of our students. So we're very, very glad that you were able to get out of the building this morning and join us for this. So anything for the good of the order. Yes.
One quick question. So it's fun to hear about all the new programs and I'm from Marinette, so a smaller area where we don't have some of the urban resources. And we had a great Goodwill program for a long time, but that went away. We're kind of rebuilding PBR partnerships too. So we're making little inroads with what we can do in schools and other things. I'm excited for other ideas and look at some of the resources. But I was wondering if they have any assessments that they use for the busy case manager who's trying to build this piece that doesn't have like transition support at this point. Like what are some work occupational assessments? I pay attention to competencies and other things that we can build into like workplace programs at the school, like a school tracker.
That's a great question, Val. do you-
I think Melissa,
Val
I,
is our special ed expert, so we're so lucky to have her as part of our team.
I think that somebody this morning already talked about a free voc assessment.
I think it was Megan Girl.
Yes, Megan talked about a free voc assessment, and that was linked into her presentation. I tried to go in there to see what it was all about, and you have to connect yourself to an organization. So I think I had to create like a CESA 8 one before I could go any farther. But it looked like this voc fit, right? Thank you. She was pulling it up. You just went past it, Lynn. Right there.
Oh, okay.
This to me looks like a great resource when you're trying to decide what skills kids should work on and if they've made progress. Because if you're teaching specific skills in the classroom, and then you're able to say they weren't able to do it at the beginning of the semester, we practiced it through the semester, we completed the assessment again, these are the new skills that they have. And what a great pre-vocational skill, so that you can move them out into a job placement after they've learned some of those skills in your classrooms. So I think that would be a great one. I mean, obviously you can use any of the same things that school counselors use for trying to do interest inventory type things like Zello has. There are some visual interest inventories that are just pictorial for kids that are nonverbal or non-readers, where you can circle the picture of the thing that you like the best, and it helps you also give them some ideas what they're interested in. And those I just purchased through Pearson, I think. So yeah, those kinds of things, but I really like this one. I want to spend a little more time digging into this one. You're done. You updated.
Sure. Becky, do you have any?
No, we use the pick one a lot that they'll just mention, but I would like to dig into this one too, to actually get that vocational assessment. I don't think we've ever had anything that assess their actual skills, physical skills of a job versus what they want to do and what they like. And so yeah, let us know what's going on.
One day a week she can do that.
Yeah.
Any other restricted one? Right, and you've got 7 minutes to network with each other before lunch is available. Apparently it's baked potato bar with chili, and I don't know, I know you're all familiar with those days. So during October, they set themselves the challenge of selling the most apple dumplings. And every year they try to top themselves. And so apparently apple dumplings is the dessert today. So make sure that you take advantage of that. But they are going to do, spend some time doing some networking, talking to regulars I know here here. And like I said, next month, the food health networking will go back to regular time or not. I
really like that too. I have access to the work districts. I have.